Yeah, I don't know if it's can you hear me? This is Paulie. Welcome to the pre-show. Bone or Wookie, can you hear me? Turn it up to 11. So let me know if you can hear the music and not just me, because I'm trying something different tonight. Let me see. Anyways, welcome to the pre-show. Try to put up a little louder. Let me know if that's better. Please share the link. We got some very special guests joining us. No music, just me. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Well, I do. I do know what's going on. And it is I'm sharing different types of web browsers, so that ain't gonna work. Mighty wanna boogie. But shoot, I could sing it. Mighty wanna. That's my baby tonight. Okay, let's remove this. Yeah, I'm on a new browser tonight because I have to keep the other one open and go right into the watch party. But it's all good. It's all cool. So let me try to share the link here. I'm in Firefox. So whatever that is, let me see if I can share. Let me get a window open. But how are you guys doing tonight? How's everyone's day? Have you guys ever heard of the Zoot Suit Riots? When I say Zoot Suit Riots, what's the first thing that pops into your brain? Whether it's Cherry and Poppin' Daddies or Edward James Olmos or swing music, what do you know about the Zoot Suit Riots? Let us know in the chat. And we have some really cool, distinguished folks with us. Let me know if you have any questions for them. And we will do our best to get to those questions. Just starting a little early. I was hoping to play some Lalo Guerrero, who's the father of this type of music. Let me. Okay. Oh, maybe it's letting me. Ooh. Okay, wait a minute. I'm so confused. Okay. How's that? Let me know if you guys can hear that. In the stream. My baby tonight. Okay, we got the wrong. Okay. It's a good thing this is the pre-show. Shoot. I'm trying to get the song, but it's a new browser. That's all that's going on. Yeah. Hey, 300 Mirrors. Hey, Geek Tropology. Hey, Wookiee Lives Matter. Geek Tropology, I'm in Firefox. So I'm trying to work the Firefox. And it's not the same interface as you can imagine with it's not the same as as Chrome, but Chrome, I have the Midnight's Edge in Espanol opened up, so I can't get out of there, because if I get out of there, then I have to bother someone in the middle of the night to let me back in. Oh my lord. Uh, let me try one more time. One more time. Okay, that's not it. And there's me, but let me see if this works. Okay, so we're gonna allow this, and I play this because this is what I. Let me know. Let me know if you guys can hear this. That's my baby boy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How's that, guys? Can you hear Lalo? I see it on the screen. And 300 Mirrors is still making dinner. That's great. What are you making? I had a little bit of a sandwich. Oh, he's saying no. Gosh darn it. Okay, well, tell you what, we're going to kill this because I don't want to waste all this time. We got 9 people here early. No Lalo. Sorry, Lalo. What kind of music do I really don't have any saved like swing music? I got like rock and roll. We ain't gonna do that, but let's just start the show early, and then we'll bring in our wonderful guests. How does that sound? Share the link, hit the like, let people know that we're here. We're here, and let's pretend we're just starting right now. And 3, 2, 1.
Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Slant, yeah, but isn't this the unplugged version? I don't know. I think it's the unplugged version. All right, Paulie, let's go. All right, listen, y'all. Just go ahead and let the guest play. Come on, jeez. That's better. Where'd I go?
Why, hello there. Hello, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to the show. My name is Paulie, and it's good to have you guys here on a Wednesday evening. And man, what a busy week we have. If you are connected at all to the Latino Slant, you know we got some big stuff tonight and tomorrow. But tonight, right now, is the 78th anniversary of the Zoot Suit Riots. And I brought in a couple of people to help me out. And these couple of people know their way in and around the history and the fashion of the Zoot Suit Riots. So let's go over about 15. Oh, yeah, man, that's cool. Before we bring them in, though, let's say hi to everyone. And actually, we got our first super chat of the night. And let us say hello to Mr. Tickle Trunk for $2. I think he's got I think it's like a little fox farting hearts. Thank you. Gracias. Bone is here. Wookiees lives matter. El Ramos is here. What's up, El Ramos? What's happening, bud? All right. I know it's a busy night, but also that 70s rock fan is here. And who else is here? Oh, one of our new friends, and she is a wrench to the channel, 300 Mirrors. She's cooking food. Geek Tropology. Of course, the great Clobbering Times. And we are just happy you guys are all here. And of course, Diego Flores. Jefe, that's a Shibu Inu, the one farting hearts. It's a dog breed from Japan. Well, there you go. I stand corrected. And our member, Stephen Auten, is here as well. Okay. Let's get into it. Got a little bit dressed up. I had a little curl in my hair, but it just kept dying and dying and dying. I'm like, let me just put the hat on, slick it up right here like that. And that'll be it, what's cool about this thing that we're doing tonight is I just realized right before we went live that this would be the second time the Latino Slant has honored the Zoot Suit Riots, which means this is a year now that we have been up and running, but it's not our first live stream. So I count the first live stream. Our first guest was, in fact, my first co-host, and we recorded over a year ago on his Zoom, and then I edited it and then I put it up. And so it's kind of fitting that he's here. And I don't know if he's ready. He's getting his chains ready. Thumbs up, buddy. Oh, he's putting his jacket on, but he's got the whole thing. Wait till you see who I got here. Out of Boyle Heights, everyone. The Barrio Boychik has returned to the Latino Slant. Well.
Hola, Paco. What's happening? So I haven't talked to you guys in a while. It's nice to see you. How you doing?
Good. How's the audio right there?
Oh, the audio. So it's coming. Are we coming hot today?
You're sounding mighty scratchy.
Mighty scratchy.
Like it's blown out.
Oh.
Maybe lower your volume.
No, absolutely. No, but we're using a different lavalier today, so that's important for us to know because we are.
Yes.
Yes. Is this
sounds
better?
Great.
Yes. This is the way I set the other one. Yeah, I set our other one, so I think this should work. Okay. Very good. How you doing?
Excellent, my friend. Excellent. It's good to see you, everyone. Barrio Boychik, East LA Boyle Heights historian. ¿Qué pasó?
Nothing much. It's just been an amazing week of seeing how people have been out in the community celebrating the 78th anniversary of the Zoot Suit Riots. This Sunday was the anniversary cruise, and there was just so many pictures and videos that people took of this year, which is really kind of important because normally we would be doing the Zoot Suit Riot bus tours and stuff like that. And we do them throughout the year, not just around the anniversary. But we haven't done that since COVID. And we are going to be getting back to doing that. But one of the things that we have been leaning into with all of the different people who keep the heritage alive today, Pachucos Unidos and all the different types of groups that do rides, they have been doing anniversary rides through some of the historic areas. And the pictures that they got this year were amazing because all these people got to be included in the time of COVID, in which people aren't necessarily ready to get on tour buses and to go to group events. It's an interesting way that we've been able to keep the heritage alive all these years and innovate in the age of COVID.
Well, you look great, man. You look happy. You look rested.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's that. I have been resting up because my partner is here. After 3 years of being away in Germany, we finally have him back to be able to eat Mexican food again. And so, no, we've just been really, spending time resting and getting ready for the big grand opening because everything opens here in Los Angeles, on the 15th.
Fantastic. Well, maybe one of our wrenches can
that.
grab your museum link. I don't know if I have it in the description, but you can look for the Boyle Heights.
The Boyle Heights History Studios.
Yeah, Boyle Heights Museum Studios.
So, we're actually doing an event, though, that's coming up that's going to be with another group down in Orange County. We're partnering with El Pachuco, Zoot Suit Incorporated, and they have a cultural center down there, too. There's been doing some amazing programming on everything from, teaching painting and, hosting cooking classes. So very much like us too, and so I want to do a shout out to the people who've been keeping the heritage alive for 40 years. They're expanding. They're not. It's not a declining heritage. It's an expanding heritage. So.
Well, let's get the conversation going, and people in the chat, throw us your questions regarding the history of Zoot Suits, the Zoot Suit Riots, Pachucos, lowriders. But before we do that, well, do that now, guys. But before we get to your questions, let's bring in the editor, founder of the Daily Chela, and writer, podcaster extraordinaire, a good buddy now to the Latino Slant, Brandon Lauren Maxwell.
How's it going?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Does it sound still scratchy?
No, it doesn't. You sound okay. I think the other audio coming in sounds a little bit poppy and scratchy. I can't tell if it's just me.
What we can do is we can detach.
I think it's better. So as we go along, Schmuel, maybe we can keep improving on it. How about that?
Yeah. Let's try working on the audio. I can go ahead and get something a little bit more traditional.
That actually sounds really good.
This sounds good.
That actually sounds really good.
Okay, so yeah, it was one of the main labs that wasn't active.
Okay, so it's 78 years, this anniversary of the Zoot Suit Riots. I know, Brandon, you did a couple stories on it from the Pachuca, from the female perspective, as far as Pachuca lowriders. And Barrio, you do these amazing tours in person, or used to. Maybe it's coming back.
Yes.
So, what would be the ADC? What would be the first thing that we could get? Because we got an international crowd here, and I would say majority of this crowd we have are not even Chicano, or not even Mexican. Which is great. Gotta love the Slantinos. What would be, Brandon, like the very first thing you would tell them about the Zoot Suit, the history of the Zoot Suits and the Zoot Suit Riots?
Well,
go ahead.
I want to make clear that I'm not an expert. I'm sure he knows more than I do about it. I do write about it fairly often. I have a couple projects in the works that cover it. And it's something that I find fascinating and something that I find important in history. So, the first thing that I would tell people is that the lead up to the Zoot Suit Riots was years in the making. It didn't just happen overnight. It was something that snowballed over a period of time, and then culminated in the Zoot Suit Riots. It wasn't just that was the Zoot Suit Riots. You had, for example, the Sleepy Lagoon, which played a huge role in it. You had roundups of people that played a role in it. You had various clashes between servicemen and young Mexican American youth across LA County. And really, it wasn't even just LA County. You had it in Oakland, El Paso, various places. So, the first thing that I would say is that this was long in the making before 1943.
Okay. And Schmuel, want to add to that? The first thing that if our audience was like, well, what is the Zoot Suit Riots? What are Zoot Suits?
Well, I think one of the most important things to talk about when you talk about the Zoot Suit is that a lot of people think that it's a Mexican American, fashion, that it's a Mexican American phenomenon from a specific era, and it's really not. It is a manifestation of working class minority people emerging from the swing, the swing halls, which were, had African Americans largely mixing with other people, in a time in which that was very dangerous. That was very dangerous. One of the things that is amazing about when we think about the style of what makes the Zoot Suit and the Los Angeles styling of it is that we see so many elements that emerge, everything from Cab Calloway, personifying this as he brings it, westward, from the Cotton Club all the way over to, the Coconut Grove and, the Hollywood Bowl. We see locally within our own style that there are elements that are very, very much influenced by the different types of people that you would find in working class communities during the redlining, such as Filipinos, such as Japanese, before the war and stuff like this, who kind of styled it in their own way. So it isn't just a phenomenon within Mexican Americans. Largely emerged as an African American style, but was stylized by different people who were, really kind of lunging at what was being popularized in Hollywood at the time. And I think that's one of the things that's really important for people to know, is that it's an international American working class style that comes together within American context of people who are coming to age out right after the Great Depression, and imagine how they wanted to really show that good times had come in style, And so you really see that. I mean, luckily, I don't have that long of hair anymore. I just recently got a haircut. But I wanted to do a ducktail for you. I was growing out my hair for a while.
Yeah. I had a little curl, but then it kind of just melted.
Yeah, well, what's very interesting when you talk to the old veteranos, they talk about, back in San Pedro, we adopted that from seeing, the Filipinos. That was a very popular style at the time. And that people can kind of specify, they're different people within their own cliques, within their own barrios, who who brought certain influences. And that's what I find that's really amazing, is that the veteranos, they tell a story that's not just a Chicano story. It's so important for us, but we can take pride in knowing that there are other people who also latched onto this as a very proud style for them to wear.
So, from films, it was noted. It was shown in particular in the movie, because you guys say it wasn't just a Chicano thing. That always makes me think of Malcolm X. In the movie, early on, Malcolm Little was a zoot suiter, and it was always such a weird thing to see black people in zoot suits, especially because he was from Philadelphia or then Harlem. What's the connection there?
Well, first of all, one of the slang terms they used for him was drapes. They used to call them drapes. And a lot of people don't realize this. I have a book up here. There's a book called Spilling the Beans, which I recommend. But he actually talks about how the zoot suits actually came over from Europe. They just weren't popular. And so they were essentially dumped into black neighborhoods out here in the U.S. They adopted them. And then because there's so much overlap in working class communities, you had Mexican Americans essentially adopting them from the black community, just like they had adopted or listened to a lot of jazz and things like that, and oldies and soul. So you had that, and if the funny thing is, I feel like Mexican Americans kind of added their own flavor to it, their own style, and everything they do, it's always with a certain amount of pride. So if they didn't invent it, they certainly perfected it, and I feel like they owned it really in the long term. Because I feel like it faded out from a lot of other communities. It's interesting because, they were working class, but they were also really expensive. So it wasn't like you were working class and you had 50 to choose from. I mean, you saved up, and it was like the equivalent, I don't know, like having a white pair of Jordans in the 90s, right? Like, more expensive, but it's like you could be working class and have them. You knew plenty of people that did, but it was like you were really showing off what you had, but they weren't cheap.
No, absolutely. I mean, what really makes the zoot suit here locally in East LA accessible, Southeast LA accessible for people, was the start of World War II. And what happens is that you ended up with students at like Roosevelt, Garfield, they could sign up for half the day or the whole day to get, not to just get paid what was the minimum wage, which wasn't that bad. They could get paid and also get school work credit. And so they would be putting these planes together in order to send off to the Pacific for war. And so they would, well, in our area, $29.95 was like the bottom line zoot suit. When you're making about 89 cents, per hour, that doesn't take very long. And so what happens is that what's very kind of interesting about this is that when these young Mexican Americans and other people around them, the Great Depression is over, they're starting to see good times and like they've never seen it before. And that's just, we have this Mexican saying about el que nunca tenía nada, cuando tiene loco volver. When you've never had anything before, once you get it, with it you go crazy. And the idea was, though, is that people did have some money that they made doing something that was rather patriotic, interestingly enough, creating all of these planes for the war. And then later on, what they decided to do is that they were going to go out and they wanted to do what everyone else did in America. They were going to go out and dance. They were going to go out to, the movie theaters. They were going to go out to all of these places. And what's interestingly enough is that a lot of that generation of young people were hated by the older generation for leaving the barrios. No, we work over there. We come back here to the safety and the traditionalness of our barrio. And no, but you Pachucos are going to find trouble over there. And they didn't understand quite what Jim Crow in Los Angeles really meant. Until they really, really experienced people trying to force them into that box. That's why we get the Orpheum Theater, and these types of things. And or you see people being attacked just for being people of color.
Now, before we get into those, the next step as far as that young generation feeling empowered, emboldened, in fact, to venture out of their own barrios and to take advantage of Los Angeles. I want to finish up that fashion element. We have a question about the fashion, but before that, I would love for everyone, and we're going to highlight you. I would love for everyone to see Barrio Boychik's drapes. And so we can get if you can, and just maybe from head to toe, give us like a little lesson of what exactly you're wearing.
Nice.
So let me go ahead and we'll see how we can do this. And so traditionally, one of the things that's very important is really how you start, especially within the working class people who kept this as you really do start with your drapes, and that is your pants. And what is unique about the Zoot Suit pants is that they have these repleats. They are very, very big. Indeed, you could get as much as 42 inches with
wow.
The leg here. And
why are they that big? Why make them that big?
And so what happens is that you notice how you have these pleating within them. You have these pleating within them, and then really it comes down to just a very thin. Leg, where it comes together at the leg.
Yes.
Oh, these are my shoes. These are my shoes.
Are those Stacey Adams?
Yes, my cat. I am not going to go dancing anytime in these ones because they are beauties and I will destroy them. So they are for show for when we do, demonstrations for at Pachuco and stuff like this. But
let me ask you a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Why is there so much fabric? Why all that leg room? Is it to dance or is it just to make a statement?
And that's one of the key elements of this is that this is all inspired in order to have more room in order to swing dance, initially. And so when you look at the old pictures and everyone, you see these styles and everything, so that they can do this very dramatic swing dancing. And so what happens is that you need more room in order to be able to accomplish that without ripping your seams and stuff in these places. The problem is that using this much fabric becomes forbidden during World War II. And you're supposed to be conserving for things. And what happens is that also things like having full-length skirts. which are traditional and very ethnic, communities, were forbidden. You're supposed to have slim line suits for Uncle Sam, and so shorter skirts, slimmer pants. And so what happens is that there were people who, were not abiding by that, who were going to make them, for, people within the community. Interestingly enough, look at this.
Hold on a second. Hold on to that thought.
This is the other big element that comes to it. And
so hold on to that thought, because we have a question, right?
Yes.
So Troy Pacelli, who's a member here at the channel, am I correct that the zoot suit was often derided because it was off the rack, so may not have been well tailored, at least in popular perception?
Believe it or not, that's not necessarily true. I mean, there were certain people who could, acquire these, type of things without having to make so many alterations. Indeed, most of people's mothers made a lot of alterations. However, I can tell you for a fact, knowing the Zalmans, I can tell you for the fact, knowing the Greenspans, that, the big people who really provided the zoot suit, both here in East LA and over, over in Watts at the time, before they moved to Southeast Los Angeles. They were actually tailoring stuff. You got to understand, look at the kucha here, big, long coat. You need to have a little bit longer than your fingertips is the, traditional style, but you're real chingon if you go longer.
Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you back? Yeah, there you go. Back all the way up.
So let me.
Oh yeah.
Here.
Wow, he looks great, Brandon.
This is what we got.
Yeah, I like it.
Pretty sharp, brother. Pretty sharp.
The thing is that there is, as you notice, what's kind of funny is that the coat, it actually is a style that is influenced by Europe, and you'll actually see that there were certain people that were able to provide this style coat, and it was Jewish tailors. Why? Because this is exactly the same type of style as a batasha, a kapatza, it's a traditional, like, Hasidic way of dress that kind of came over. And so they had something that was already within that type of style, that you could give to people. That's the Zalman, and all of them had that. The Greenspans had them readily available within this. But they were also breaking the rules at the time in order to keep their traditional religious styles, of long coats, long skirts. So there were certain people who saw this type of prohibition as just another arbitrary prohibition in order to kind of keep certain people in line. And so they had no problem breaking these rules as tailors. Last big comment, of course, is
go ahead.
Chain. And so the thing is that, you always have it on the side, which you're right-handed, left-handed. The thing is that people always ask me, because now it's just fashion. Now it's just style. We all have our different ones that we wear, formally and stuff. But it used to be that on the other end of it was one of two things: a watch, traditionally, back in the old days, but then later, a knife. Your small pocket knife. A simple pocket knife, not anything over the top, but a simple pocket knife. The thing is that as Mexican Americans started to kind of grow these type of styles, it began that you have something that's so big and everything that the way that the Pachucos here in town kind of danced, the men didn't really dance a whole lot. They didn't move a whole lot because they were afraid of making too many pieces, in their outfit and everything. So they just kind of like learned to be feedmen, as they made the girl kind of go around them. And so it becomes this it becomes this very kind of romantic, this very firm style in which a guy is showing a level of confidence. Now, can you imagine in a time of Jim Crow, in which you see many young Mexican Americans who are doing something that traditionally people didn't do before? They're getting dressed up and they're going to go together, heading out on the town with all the confidence that they earned this money, that they're dressing nice, and all of these things, and to see that people really just took offense of that. Oh, that and that, these people were encouraging mixed race dancing, and that might lead to interracial horizontal mambo. And what could be worse than that?
So as you come back in, Brandon, do you have any fashion questions for Barrio Boychik?
Not really. Nothing off the top of my head.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
so,
the style is really been well studied in museums. It's documented,
Yeah, let's take a break because we got quite a few new people coming in, and we actually have a new member to the channel, and that's Yvonne Lopez. And Yvonne, thank you for becoming a member, and thank you also for earlier for that super chat from I think Mr. Tickle Trunk. Every new member gets a dancing dog. We'll be right back.
Isn't it wonderful?
Yes. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much. And we have quite a few new subscribers hanging out, including Rusty Shackelford, who says he joined because he loves history and culture. We have plenty on it on the channel. And Rusty says he felt it looked Hasidic.
What's really funny? That's a couple years ago, it was the high holidays. I went to go visit my family and I fell asleep, and I was supposed to lead services religiously there, also on the east side. So basically I had to be the assistant rabbi for high holidays, the big time of the year. Had to pull off the jazz singer act. And I had nothing to wear in the closet except my zoot suit at the moment. There was nothing that I had that I brought from my own place. And so I had to get in my zoot suit and go to Beth Shalom of Whittier and lead high holiday services in the zoot suit. I thought, oh my God, these people are going to have my head. These people are going to have my head. The board is going to absolutely fire me after all these years. They're like, we could deal with your socialist stuff, but this one is going to break. So you know what? The old ladies loved it. They thought it was the greatest thing ever. They thought it was literally like Al Jolson, jumping off the screen with their Mexican, neighbors that they grew up with. No, they understood what the style was, and it's funny how on this side of history, we have people who have come to appreciate it as a style, because you begin to see people having their weddings, in zoot suits and stuff like that. That was my introduction to the zoot suit is having family weddings, like my cousin Marlene, who we all got suited up at Pachuco Zoot Suit, and I've been here all these years later. We have this relationship, so yeah.
So here we are now, 78 years later, and we really didn't go into the actual the actual riots or the actual skirmishes that lasted a couple days, correct?
Well, that's about 8 days, but there's a bunch of skirmishes before that.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'd like to talk a little bit about that, and then I want to talk about its lasting impact on the Chicano culture now and its global impact. So let's talk about we kind of set the scene already that these young Mexican Americans, Chicanos, whatever you want to call them, going out of their barrios, enjoying downtown, enjoying the good life. What happened? Was it the newspapers that fanned the flames? Barrio.
It really is. It really is. And there's something that happens if we're gonna talk about the Zoot Suit Riots, we need to understand that this is something that was kind of primed to happen, and it was primed really to happen by really what happened with the Sleepy Lagoon case. And so the Sleepy Lagoon case, basically, you have just this murder out here in Southeast Los Angeles with Bell today. And we actually go there in the tour. And interestingly, it's all like military bases right now. And so we take people out there, but it was just a murder out in a sleepy little area with reservoirs where kids swam, and small little houses around, farm area. And what's interesting is that normally the death of a Mexican American in Los Angeles isn't of much importance, but during the war, people are paranoid, and so there becomes this huge influence of people, trying to go after, be tougher than the other, and have things against people that they believe are un-American. So there begins this attack towards Mexican Americans, trying to pin it on any kids, taking like 300 kids into jail at once in order to try to find out who did it. So what happens is you have the newspapers, though, the entire time that are following every step. And in those days, they used to make more than one edition in the day if you got like real cheeseman out on something. So they really scandalized every type of element, and really, as it later went on to be tried in court, 17 people in the end get for the same crime. You have these newspapers that are putting in what is in the legal record, that sociologists are talking, oh yeah, if it was white people, they would have just, punched each other. But Mexicans, these are descendants of Aztecs. I mean, they used to sacrifice people. So it's in their blood, to kill people. And so that's why they always have knives and blah, blah, blah. Now, these types of things start to become these scandalous tropes that become like, soap operas being played out. People realize they can make a lot of money within this, but it sets a nationalistic attitude also towards, Mexican Americans that is eventually going to come to a head. It's going to have a consequence, later on. And it does so during the time, of the war. Again, when there's skirmishes, many skirmishes, they're going to turn it into a riot by basically turning it into, the telephone telling of the story. It was told in the Barrio that someone got beat up. Then it got to downtown. There was someone stabbed. By the time it makes it out the paper, someone was killed. No one was killed. You see what I mean? And so we have these instances in which the newspapers in those days, I mean, remember, they were causing wars, newspapers, the Spanish-American War, if you forget. The newspapers had wanted to sell more papers. And this was a great opportunity. The sick thing about it is that they didn't just report it. They actually go on in the newspapers to tell when and where the attacks were going to happen. And so that's what's rather unique within what we see, how newspapers are going to profit. They're going to prime the situation to sell more papers. Have anything to add, Brandon, about the kind of...
I'm sorry. I don't know if I lost you.
Yeah. No, I mean, did you have anything to add in how they, well, because it's funny.
Yeah, I wanted Brandon to add on to that.
Because, I think you would also agree that later on, other newspapers outside of Los Angeles really scandalize on the thing that Latinas are fighting men. That, it's even said in like Washington state newspapers, that the men are in jail, but the cholitas, are still battling on. And so it does go beyond just Los Angeles kind of phenomena. In that, newspapers in other places also kind of fan the flames in places. I mean, as far away as Detroit, within African-American communities, they're going to have something very similar too.
Yeah. I think there was a real hysteria, going back in that lead up. There was a lot of newspaper articles about quote unquote Zoot Suit gangs and, like you said, cholitas. And I know that headline, in fact, it's a pretty famous newspaper clipping there. Yeah, and for the listeners that don't know, the murder that happened at Sleepy Lagoon, the person who was found, his name was Jose Diaz, I believe, and they had speculated that so this fight happened, and they had speculated that it was two Zoot Suit gangs that had got into it and left him stabbed on the side of the road, but it was never conclusively proven that it was Mexican American youth fighting. In fact, there are some that say that it was some white people, the Downey Boys, that had come along and got into a beef. I don't know enough details to know what it was. I just know that it caused a huge hysteria. Like he said, something like 500 youth were rounded up. I mean, there were people rounded up after the Zoot Suit Riots and Sleepy Lagoon, put onto buses. In this particular case, you had, I think, 13 or 17 youth that went in. They were convicted. It was later overturned and they were released. But it was a huge flashpoint in Mexican American history and culture because I think it really, I mean, it left like not a stain, but it just is ingrained in. I mean, if you know Mexican American history, that's you have before the Zoot Suit Riots and Sleepy Lagoon and after. And even in the world of gangs, which is more my specialty, I mean, you look at that and the impact that had. I mean, it's really important. But yeah, the media played a huge role in it, like you said, leading up to the Zoot Suit Riots and to Sleepy Lagoon.
And I also think that.
Let me ask Brandon a question. Hold that really quickly, Barrio Boychik.
Yeah, I was going to ask him a question as well. So
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to ask, within this is also a time in which like sociologists are kind of coming up with new ideas of what these groups are. People believe because the way they're dressed, they are mafiosos, basically, that they are, gangsters, not gangs like, buckwheat and, alfalfa, the kids of the block, you know what I mean? That you hear with and go dancing. The style is kind of used and they're even forced to keep it on throughout the entire trial because apparently just the style itself gave the appearance that they're baby gangsters.
Right. Well, and at that time with the rationing that they had and things like that, I mean, it was like, I think you might have mentioned before, they were considered really unpatriotic because you had rationing of cloth and things like that. And here you have these big oversized suits. So they're parading them in front of jurors and they just look like unpatriotic foreigners. To jurors during a war, and everybody knows how this country gets during wars, where you have hyper nationalism, and so I mean they were going to be convicted from the outset.
Sure.
We got a comment from the chat. Our one of our members, Troy Pacelli, and his wife says, if I can get this up, my wife just said that guys who dress nice would not be scrapping. They might mess up their threads.
Well, I don't think they were dressed in their drapes when fights did break out, and I'm not saying that fights never broke out. I'm sure there were times when they were, but I think in the incident with Sleepy Lagoon, I mean, the Pachuco style, when you look at the suits and stuff like that, that's the main style. But you also have a lot of other fashions that bred off of that, like with the pompadour and the jeans and the shirt, and actually it would go on to be kind of like more of the rockabilly, psychobilly style. You could even trace into that, and then cholo style, which we can get into. But yeah, I think there's a lot of different styles. But I would agree that nobody in their right mind would want to get their drapes messed up.
Yeah, no, I mean, but believe it or not, what I find so wonderful about it is that it takes us back into a time and before socialists from outside got to paint us all. Our community groups, as our social clubs, got to paint us as gangsters just because we have a cohesion within our own communities, and that's threatening. That's always been historically threatening. What's interesting to see is that I've seen over the years a lot of the veteranos, as they become more mature, they really get back into the basic principles of it. The style, the music, the cars that they love. And these types of things, and they become these mentors, in life, to a lot of passing down a lot of this from person to person. And that's what's really cool is that this isn't just kind of a style that you can just pick up out of anywhere. You know what I mean? You could try to, and you'll kind of look like a clown. But these are kind of things that are passed down from generation to generation of people. Maybe not even within the same family, but from people who are your mentors, too. So not just family through mentors, that kind of pass down this really kind of sense of pride that you kind of get in being able to wear the zoot suit and wearing the drapes. And I think that's really cool. I think it should really be respected as it endures. And I love that Mexican Americans, we've given it back to Mexico too. It's become popular there. Later in the late 40s, it's not just tintan. People think it's tintan. No, they had like whole movies that really kind of celebrated it, and really popular. Today it's like a big thing. I get people from Mexico City who, who ask me on, no, Baila Mi Rey, this, film way back then, this popularized it. Mass people wanted drapes after that. And so we've given something we don't often get as Mexican Americans, as the Bochas, we don't often get to give back a lot. But us in this style, also Lalo Guerrero and his music that really popularized our romance about it. As Mexican Americans, we got to shine something and give it back. Now it's beyond Mexico; it's in Japan. It's in
Barrio. We're here with historian Barrio Boychik from East LA, Boyle Heights, founder of the Daily Chela, writer, podcaster, Brandon Lauren Maxwell. Brandon, what were the women, the Pachucas, doing during this time? What was their story? If
Sure.
any of you guys, got a couple of,
Well, I learned a lot this past week with talking with Elizabeth Escobedo, who wrote the book on women during Mexican American women during World War II, and she's helping me out with a bigger project that I have in the works. But World War II was sort of a huge transitional period for women as well. And as she pointed out on my podcast, you had a bunch of brothers and fathers that essentially dictated everything that the women did in those days. Very traditional, very don't venture outside the home, very you work in certain industries or don't work at all. Well, when all the brothers and stuff went off to war, and it left some of the women with the opportunity to venture out in ways that they didn't used to. According to Elizabeth in her book, which is called From Zoot Suit to Coveralls, she talked a little bit about how, what's he got here?
Yes, we have some of those coveralls right here.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, we
Nice.
have some of those coveralls. And
what is this?
yeah,
What is this from? Scrapbook?
East LA students.
Oh, okay.
These are actually Garfield East LA students. Radion, they're working the Radion plant, to put together plane parts.
There you go. Yeah, and that brings up a great point, because one of the amazing things about that time, in fact, there's a photo of a lady named Celia working on a World War II bomber from that time. Women, it gave them an opportunity to transition to different fields of work and learn new skill sets. A lot of people don't realize that women actually worked on warplanes and things like that. Like, they weren't just seamstresses, like you would assume, or maybe the popular narrative says. And after World War II, they didn't want to go back to what they were doing. They wanted to, take advantage of a lot of the skills that they had learned. And so I think at that point, the top had kind of been taken off the bottle, or however that saying goes. I don't know how that saying goes, but you had opened that box, and they had an opportunity to have some mobility in the workforce, and that changed. It might not be where we as a modern society say that it should be, but for that time, it was a huge leap. And so, that's one of the things that I learned, I think, talking to Elizabeth.
I love some of the styles that really come together. The female styles that come together.
So I know that Barrio has a wonderful PDF that he had put together. We're going to try to figure out how to get that into some sort of form here where you can see it on the channel. We have about a half a dozen Zoot Suit videos already from the past year. So what we'll do is we're going to create a playlist, and I actually want to add Brandon's interview that he did, where we can add that video onto our playlist, because we're almost done with the show, right? We've barely scratched really the real, and that's okay. That's okay. The goal here is that you guys that are watching, all the members of the channel, want to find out more and more about the Zoot Suit history. So we'll have a new playlist up and running for you guys. T-shirted historian, who's a member of the channel, And actually, he's going to be doing some videos for us on Sons of Anarchy. No, the what do you call? Yeah, the Mayans MC. He says in almost every era of society, we have people wearing clothing incorrectly as a sign of expression. The slouchy, oversized look of the zoot suit can be compared to modern day pags pants sagging now.
I think that for here's where I'm going to be opinionated. I think that it's better to compare it to the cholo style, with the creased khakis, creased white t-shirts, than pants sagging low. I think the average cholo, and I was a cholo for 13 years, so I know what I'm talking about. I would consider that as not being.
You're still a cholo at heart.
Well, it never really goes away. I still low ride.
Zoot suiters, always ironing. Always ironing.
That's always ironing. So I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, and I had like 50,000 cans of starch in my room. I was always starching everything. But I would definitely say that
double creased.
I had one crease in the front. I mean, my pants, it was crazy. But they don't do that today like they used to. But I would say that it's probably a better comparison would be like early 90s cholo fashion. Was in the same way, and it shocked people the same way too. Like if you came home in the 90s with a shaved head and your khakis and white t-shirt, I mean, your parents were probably flipping out in the same way that traditional parents were flipping out when somebody came home in their drapes. It's arguable that one is worse than the other because you probably were involved with gangs if you were walking around with a shaved head in the 90s. But my point was that you were also saying something, I think, with your style, and there was a sense of pride in it. And I think a lot of this, and I write about this a lot and have a project that covers this. It's a multitude of influences from prison to military to Pachuco fashion. And all three of those, when you look at them, they all are creased. They're all look nice. And you see that uniform look a lot in Chicano street culture. And a lot of it is because those three worlds have blended together for decades.
And what it becomes is it does become a way in which you can in which people have kind of learned a sense of a dignified way in which for them to present themselves. It becomes a very serious thing. No, seriously, I remember as a kid, every cholo I knew ironing.
Yeah.
We take it. It's the same with zoot suiters. But it's funny if you asked other people of the other subcultures within the neighborhood, because as you get older, you find you've been through one too many youth movements. Take it all the way down to like the Chicano rude boys and rude girls of the neighborhood. You know what I mean? Totally have taken the working class skinhead style, Mexicanized it for an American community. And but are still just as serious about the very details of things. And it's funny that these become in which people are saving up money, as they're working hard towards these things, and so they are coming at you with a certain level of dignity. They ain't coming at you to be belligerent. And I think that's one of the things that really does need to be appreciated. Believe it or not, it's not even you cannot slouch in a zoot suit. Believe it or not. Because the way that you wear your pants, in order to hold them up really correctly, you have to hold it's almost like a corset sometimes if you eat too many tamales. And so the thing is that you do actually find yourself conforming to this kind of very dignified style in which you put yourself in. And for people who are finding discipline for the first time in the army, in jail, in other type of expressions through social groups, it becomes an influence in which they take in very heartily and pass down to others too. The same way, very, very, very cleanly. Almost, you can see a direct connection.
Yeah, and like he said, there's so many little details that you only know if you grow up with the culture. I mean, the detail you can't go in and fake it. You just can't.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's what makes it more special in some ways.
Sure. Speaking of, Krusty Moco, who's a member to the channel, says in the 80s, I remember the dudes wearing pleated baggy pants and sweaters to identify who they rolled with. And then he continues to say, They stopped the sweaters because the cops would snatch them on sight.
We used to stitch Old English on the back of our sweaters. I see kids on Instagram doing it now, but yeah, we used to do it. And
my
Well,
sister
that's
still writes
wonderful,
notes in Old
'cause
English because of that.
That's wonderful, guys, because in about the last, I would say, 5-10 minutes of the show here, I'd like to just for you guys to just touch upon its current influence and world impact. You're talking about young kids, still doing that with their fashion. What's the lasting impact of the zoot suit and maybe now you could say the cholo culture?
you know what? I think about this a lot, and you know that I write about this a lot and talk about it a lot. I think there's good and bad to it. I look at places like Japan, and I think that the Japanese do it right in the aesthetic way, right? Like when I see a Japanese lowrider or the style, they put the same amount of pride and work in it that I would see somebody who grew up around it in the U.S., like a Mexican American. And because you can see those details, and I think probably some of it's cultural because they're very, it's just in their cultural, they're very like that, very disciplined. And then I also see it taking off in other countries where I think they think they're doing it, but they're focusing kind of on the wrong things, like, or only the aesthetics, or they think it's all gangs, or you know what I mean? And
Yes.
it's the devil's in the details in a way. And I think that a lot of people miss the details. In fact, I was with this old school veterano the other about maybe about a month ago, and we were talking, and he's in his 50s, and we were talking about style, how it's changed. And the first thing he said to me,
real fast, veterano means veteran, guys.
Yes.
Veteran of the streets of your neighborhood, veterano. Sorry, Brandon.
No, yeah. Well, the first thing he said to me when we were talking about style is he's like, they don't do it the same way we used to. They're always off by something. And it's because they think that it's just about the style. But it's the way you stand. It's the way you speak. It's the way you conduct yourself around other people. There's a way that there's a discipline and a respect in how you treat other people and how you treat yourself. And most people would be surprised to hear that, but it's true. I mean, some of the most respectful, disciplined people are some of those old school guys that I've met, and the way they carry themselves. And people have to remember that, there was a time with a lot of these guys that, like, they came to blows when they had to, and some of them would held their own and stuff, but a lot of those guys didn't look for it necessarily. You know what I mean? And I just feel like sometimes the Instagram generation, a lot of these kids, like, they get it, they focus on the wrong element of it.
No, you're absolutely right, and I think that's one of the things that is really I push forward when I talk about this history, that I really have to kind of present in order to really get it right and do by our people. And one of the things that was explained to me by Mike Duran, who here was with T Flats right here at 4th and Fresno, and was goes all the way back. He later, does go on to be, a gang intervention type of person, as a veterano and stuff, starts creating clubs, just social clubs again, that, kind of giving them protection to do that. When he tells me about, kind of the old days, the kind of respect that people gave, he kind of tells me about this. He's like, the problem is that today, everyone wants to make out that cholos and everything that they are that they are gangsters, like they're Al Capone or something, and that was used as a slur by sociologists to get us in jail. But no. The fact is that we aren't gangsters. We didn't say we were, but we didn't say we weren't either. Now, what you need to do is you need to go back and you need to correct that, because look at all of our social groups that are still here and what we do in intervening, within our own communities and the ethic that we stand for. And so that's one of the big things that people have been asking me to really revisit, is to talk about really what the social club history is, and also what does become of it later on, and still leans over into our lowriders, and stuff like that, and these different types of things that do become manifestations that aren't just gangs. That people do go on to be, regular representatives of people who, collect toys for children, during, the holidays and stuff like that. And so we really need to give respect to, that these people that you see representing out in the community, they've matured in their ways of life. They have, really given back to the community, and they're still giving back, not just in style, but also in some of the ways that they're contributing to the community. I would ask people to take a second look.
Yeah, and another thing, and I'll have to talk with you sometime offline and tell you about the projects I have going on. I think you'd find it really interesting. But to piggyback kind of on what he's saying, I think that a lot of people don't understand that what makes Mexican American gangs, quote unquote gangs, different in a lot of ways is that they were essentially their neighborhoods. They were just their neighborhoods, and you look at a lot of those early gangs, you look at Temple Street, or you look at Hazard, you look at White Fence, all these early 38th Street, they're all just neighborhoods that they came from. It's different than what you find in other cultures. It's different than what you find in other parts of the country even. And so that's something I think people have a hard time understanding, that a lot of this was also bred about by redlining practices, by people essentially being ostracized to certain areas of the city and protecting the neighborhood, what little you did have. And so the police lumped you in together. And so when you said that's why even till this day, when people hit each other up and they say, where are you from? Right? Like, what neighborhood are you from? Right? And that's literally where it goes back to, because it was about neighborhoods. So people need to understand that about Mexican American gangs.
This is White Fence right here.
Yeah, there you go.
Now this is the mid 50s still. Okay, it's like 54. Yeah. Okay, and notice how they're dressed. They are in they're in one of our local boys and girls, our boys clubs and stuff like that. They have a regular sponsor, of an older veterano in the community. But believe it or not, the city asked them to create these groups in order to create a cohesion by which they could be friends with each other, playing, and walking home with school from each other. Well, later on, they get in trouble basically for having this cohesion. And if you look at the arguments that's made why we have the gang injunctions to this day, it's basically largely built off of these sociologists such as Malcolm Klein saying you need to separate people, individualize them from their community in order to not be, they need to be set free as individuals. Especially considering that most of them are at least first or second cousins. They need to find individuality in American life. And so our cohesion, anytime we're in a group of people and we look a little bit off from other people when it comes in style, all of a sudden it becomes this. I would like to be able to dress up really cool and go down the street with more than 8 of my friends that are Chicano and not have to worry that I'm going to make someone nervous and unintentionally break someone's really petty rule based off of bad sociology, bad understanding of history. Our system of gangs as we know it is created by white people throwing a lot of people in jail and it recreating itself as a self-fulfilling prophecy. There are those of us who are dedicated to coming back to culturally what it means to represent these styles in a way that represent our community with honor and with dignity. And so today the word Pachuco is not as thrown around. People sometimes ask me can you call yourself a Pachuco? Can people still do that? And I was like, well, young people call themselves queer. Why? Why do people get mad? Well, then what am I going to call you then? No. We can wear it with pride. I think a lot of us who represent this style, you see us contributing back within the community through our cultural contributions. And so my hats off to all of those who continue to hand down the heritage that is handed down from person to person. Like you said, you cannot just pick it up out of nowhere. It'll be all wrong. So it really does need to be respected as a heritage.
Before I let you guys go, I would love for you guys to give me a quick answer, if you can, to T-Shirted Historian and his question comments. I got to ask you guys, recently we had Penny Dreadful, a City of Angels, which covered the Zoot Suit Riots and Pachuco culture. I have to wonder if you've seen it and what you thought of it. Let's
That's
start
funny,
with
Paulie.
Barrio Boychik.
That's funny, Paulie. That's
That
funny.
is
That's
funny.
how I began. And I've been out doing my own thing for a while, but I began as the co-host of a show that was essentially we were going through Penny Dreadful City of Angels. We had been fan of Penny Dreadful. We're excited because El Pachuco had made the suits for this upcoming show. They're like, no, they wanted everything very authentic. But one of the things that had me worried was that they were like, well, there's not really any Chicanos that are working on the writing and this
None.
type of stuff. There's some problems about it being portrayed as gangs. That was the big concern. They're going to do the Zoot Suit Riots in the 30s, in the 1930s, as basically a Mexican pogrom against white people, and just an attack, a mass attack. And I was like, no. See, the Zoot Suit Riots are like they're incorrectly named. They should be called the White Sailor Riots. I mean, that's kind of the way it went down. But in this, we see for the first time in Penny Dreadful City of Angels that they actually take the Zoot Suit Riots outside of historical context and then make it an attack by Zoot Suiters. That's rather unique because you've seen them play with it in other movies, but for the most part, if you look at some of the Chicano movies, they do present it rather historically accurate from places like San Pedro, that perspective and stuff like that. I was rather surprised that they actually turned the Zoot Suit Riots as this bloodthirsty attack by Pachucos. And they really went past the pale on that. And so I'm glad that they finally killed off the series. Because
Brandon?
Yeah, I didn't see it, so I don't have comments on it, but I heard just from other people that I knew that there were problems with it. So
Well, I saw it, damn it.
Paulie, didn't they also say at one point, the lady also say that about Aztec blood, that you're like destined to kill because you have Aztec blood in you?
Oh,
And
I mean, there's
like,
a reason. There's a reason. First of all, there's a reason why it didn't get picked up. It was just a really bad show. It was insulting. You talk about. Anyways, we have those video reviews of Penny Dreadful, T-Shorter Story, and all our people here. We have those videos up on the channel. It's our earliest videos. Me and Barrio started Latino Slant reviewing, and we just couldn't believe it every week. We're like, did you see that? Did you see that? Oh my God. So, it was a great opportunity. Completely. They really jacked it up.
Even in small details where they don't realize that they pissed off people, like for instance, on Belvedere Heights, this is a really serious issue because they say it's the Mexican Barrio. Well, no. The Mexican Barrio is Maravilla, and they always try to erase it with the name Belvedere Heights. And so you end up with a Belvedere Park and what used to be Maravilla Park. You know what I mean? So what happens is that people, even when they read the history to try to do research and going to the newspapers, they end up using the type of negative tropes that you never want to see in the way that is represented with our own local history. And so that was just rather shocking to me that, it is really in on its face. And if you know the history well, it offended you. For those who only know it, slightly, they're like, oh, how cool, you called it Belvedere Heights, it's a tip. Oh my goodness. That's been and just ask the cholos, they'll tell you. They'll sit all afternoon with beer and tell you about the bitterness over that story. But that's another episode.
Yes. I want to thank my guest, Barrio Boychik, who's like, you're my perpetual co-host, bro. Anytime. Yeah. I know you've been busy. And the great.
No, I'll be back. I'll be back now that I have my partner back. And I'm more rested. I'll be back to be more chingon than ever.
Órale. And the great, I do mean it, the great Brandon Lauren Maxwell with his podcast and the Daily Chela. I'll see you tomorrow, bro.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow morning.
We have a big show tomorrow. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. You can find all their links in the description to this video. I'm gonna let you guys go. And
thanks for having me on.
Thank you, brother.
Enjoyed it.
All right. So, okay. In a few minutes, we're going to go over to Midnight's Edge Espanol to watch Stand and Deliver. It's our Stand and Deliver watch party. Midnight's Edge Espanol. Let me see if I can. The link is pinned to the top of the chats. So check this out, guys. We could have gone on for hours and hours, but we have many videos between myself and Barrio Boychik about the history of the Zoot Suits, about that TV show. I will put up a brand new playlist. I'm going to include some of Brandon's videos as well from his channel. And I really appreciate this. This is what makes the Latino Slant so very special and unique, as well as you guys, our members. We got a new member tonight, Yvonne Lopez. I think we're almost around 40 paying members, and we're gonna work our butts off to keep you guys happy and to keep bringing you guys great content. Okay, so tonight we have the Stand and Deliver watch party. Tomorrow on Midnight's Edge, the Stand and Deliver reunion panel. Next week we have a membership live concert with the Consequentialists. Then this Friday night, it's time to party. We're going to sing with all the members, our karaoke's. So I think that's it, guys. Much love. Look at this. We even got some more people subscribing. Rebecca Bravo. I'm gonna go over these while I play us out with the closing credits. Thank you, T-Shirted Historian. Thank you, Kirsty Moco. Muchísimas gracias. We'll see you in a few minutes on the other channel. Paz y deligas.
Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. The Slant. The Slant. All right, Paulie, let's go.